Most of us are familiar with the Panama Canal. It's one of the wonders of modern engineering. It's a transcontinental masterpiece connecting the Atlantic and Pacific. But did you know that there's a Panama Canal Railway that runs alongside the canal? It's helping turn Panama into the trade and transportation powerhouse of Latin America.
Nearly 15,000 ships a year pass through the Panama Canal, carrying millions of containers of freight and hundreds of millions of tons of cargo. Often, shipping companies are able to save the tremendous time and expense of having to go through the canal by having the cargo removed from the ships and then taken by the cars of the Panama Canal Railway from one side of Panama to the other. There, it can be loaded back onto other ships or trucks bound for the multiple locations where the cargo is destined. In the shipping industry, the Panama Canal really is the gateway to the world. It is a quick and efficient trip more than 150 years in the making. The original railroad, built in the 1850s, was a single-track operation 47 miles long, which predated the canal. It was the first transcontinental railroad in the Americas. Business was good until competition later that century from a new transcontinental railroad in the United States. The Panama Canal itself opened for business in 1914. But freight business on the rickety old railroad continued to decline, hurt even more by a highway across Panama that opened in the 1940s. The United States had rebuilt the railroad and operated it until the late 1970s when, under terms of the Panama Canal Treaty, it was turned over to the country of Panama. It continued to decline until the country decided to privatize the railroad in 1998 and selected an American company to give it new life. With the 50-year agreement to run the railroad, the new Panama Canal Railway Company was born. The partnership included the historic Kansas City Southern Railroad and Midwest-based MyJack, one of the world's leading intermodal terminal and port operators. 280,000 tons of granite ballast and mile after mile of tough steel-welded rail was brought in from Canada. 150,000 concrete cross ties were made in Colombia to withstand the tropical heat and humidity that could disintegrate the old wooden ties. The nearly $100 million revitalization investment included a complete rebuilding of the railroad into something that now complements the transportation infrastructure. In the first year of the 21st century, the new railroad, flanking the scenic canal, began to roll through the lush jungles of Panama. Business is booming.
The Panama Canal, inaugurated in 1914, became a magnet for shipping and trade routes, bringing a lot of shipping lines into this area, and currently moves about 4% of the world commerce through the canal. There's 14,000 ships that use the canal on a yearly basis, and this creates a critical mass that made sense to connect both oceans, not only with the water canal, but also with the link, which is the railroad. The government of Panama in 1995 began privatizing the ports of Panama and got world-class players to come in here and invest in the port systems. The ports of Panama quickly surpassed many of the best ports in the world, and in 1998, when the government of Panama decided to privatize the railroad, Kansas City Southern and MyJack decided that it was the right time to take advantage of the critical mass that was generated with the distribution center here in Panama to connect these ports. We inaugurated in the year 2000, and we basically served parallel to the canal, moving containers from ocean to ocean. Shipping lines have identified in the Panama Canal Railway a way to extend their services to two oceans without necessarily having to move the ship across the canal. They use us as a tool to move containers from the Pacific to Atlantic or the Atlantic to the Pacific, where they connect to other vessels. Basically, what the shipping lines have identified in the Panama Canal Railway is we've taken the major ports on the Pacific of Panama and the Atlantic of Panama, and we've molded them into just one port. Shipping lines can now come and call it Panama, discharge cargo or load cargo at any port, and we make them ocean indifferent. We move the containers to the ocean they need them to move later on.
Trains operate continuously between the terminals on the Atlantic side and those on the Pacific side. One of the most interesting things about this modern railroad can be found at the dispatch center, where a high-tech composite processor-based train control system uses global positioning systems to help monitor the location, movement, and even speed of the trains.
The system really doesn't control the train, the crew does, but the system oversees the train, and make sure that the crew doesn't put themselves into a hazardous situation or something that could actually cause an accident or mishap. The system works by having knowledge of the train, the territory, the speeds that are allowed in the territory, and what the dispatcher's instructions are in terms of where the train should go and how fast it can go, and what was called the train handling, the characteristics of the train, how heavy it is, how long it is, and the territory in terms of the grade. Are you going uphill or downhill? It uses GPS initially to ascertain a position for the train, and then with that knowledge, it goes back and looks at the map of the territory, and it derives the characteristics, and then it decides what a safe speed would be and whether or not the crew is putting themselves in danger. The problem with a train is that it's normal for a train to take anywhere from 1.5 up to 3 miles to stop. So if the crew is late or does something that puts themselves into a hazardous situation, they may not be able to recover. And we try to make sure that the crew never puts themselves in that situation.
And it's not just freight that's carried by this railroad. Luxury passenger service has proven to be incredibly popular for commuters who live near the line and for visitors.
Our commuter operation is generally for the executives in the free zone. We run a commuter train northbound and southbound Monday through Friday, and it pretty much fills up these days. During the cruise season in the Caribbean, basically from October through May, we have the cruise season, and it works out well for us. The cruisers come in on the Caribbean side, and that is where the commuter train rests during the day. And we have about 120 calls per year, and we will take the cruisers on board on the Atlantic side, run them over for the day, and return to Colón and continue with our commuter service.
The Panama Canal and the railway right next door are both testament to the engineering brilliance and extreme ingenuity of mankind. The fact that they are both efficient, complementary to one another, and economically successful are proof that they are also very well-run businesses.